Hello EU4 players, my name is AlzaboHD. In today's video, we are going to ship off 2021 by attempting to beat EU4 using only boats in Iron Man mode. No infantry or armies will be used in the making of this video, but course, subjects and alliances are fair game. We are nautical going to play any major nation either, so we will start our voyage as the aptly named Isles, themselves a minor subject nation off of the coast of the Kingdom of Scotland. It's about time to commence this ferry unboatable challenge, shipping our narrative to the Outer Hebrides in 1444 CE. But before we dock and roll, it's important to note that the Isles are a vassal subject of Scotland at campaign start. In order to seize the day and rule the waves, we'll have to first delete our meager ground forces and declare independence. Our questionable geopolitical value and fleet of fishing boats affords us few friends in diplomatic circles, and initially no European court seek to rock the boat by supporting Hebridean independence. Sooner or later, the maritime state of Denmark recognized the importance of our quest, and became our stalwart rudder from another mother. With the support of the Danes and the larger Kalmar Union, the Isles set sail for independence, declaring war on their Scottish overlord, who was herself preoccupied with an Anglo invasion. Despite being outsailored 2-1, it was time for the Hebridean-Danish alliance to release the cogs of war. Not but 2 years into our campaign, our mighty army of 0 infantry and 6 discount dinghies faced the Kingdom of Scotland and France in open war. Our first order of battle is to recruit an admiral, the aptly named Meta Nicholson, and send our ships into blockade formation. Now Scotland is already bogged down in war with the Anglo-Saxons, which is fortuitous, but our lack of infantry means that we will have to rely on our AI ally. Of course, AI in EU4 is notoriously janky, but thankfully the boatswains of Sweden and Scandinavia made landfall in 1447, quickly occupying land in the name of our nation. Several years later, the French opted to surrender and agreed to pull out of the war, as is tradition. With Scotland fully occupied by our Viking allies and war enthusiasm at an all-time low, our scheming seamen negotiated a peace in 1451, where they received independence and the majority of the Scottish Highlands. Since infantry and all forms of land-based military are verboten, our boatocracy went to great lengths to ensure a peaceful transfer of territory, increasing our territorial autonomy to avoid any potential rebels that could capsize the state. Over the next half-decade, the Isles engaged in a rapid campaign of building barges, and by 1458, they've effectively doubled their naval forces and emerged as the strongest, only maritime power in northern Britannia. With an economy centered around clubbing seals and scuttling seabirds, the Isles is a destitute dredge of a country, and the merchants of Stornoway are desperate for a payday. In order to cash out, the Isles fleet is ordered to privateer the North Sea trade node, itself a poor region of little import. To truly maximize their investment and emerge from the backwaters of obscurity, the Merchants Guild orchestrated a coup de yacht and seized the court of Hebrides by hoisting the black flag. With the monarch deposed and every man a king, the newly founded pirate republic of the Hebrides embarked in swiggity-swooty, expropriating booty and impressing sailors into service from across Western Europe. Transforming from an impoverished backwater that used to earn -2 ducats per month, the Isles could now pirate 400 ducats every 10 years, and quickly set about developing their economy and nation with their ill-begotten gains. The pious pirates of the Highlands built churches, hired cogs, and even constructed castles throughout the realm, transforming and modernizing the state and seizing the day. But to truly seize the 7 seas, the Isles had to expand by keeling the landlubbers of Britannia. With a pragmatic alliance of land dwellers in place, the Isles sailed headway into conflict, first by declaring war on the opiums of Gaeldom and Sligo. By blockading the straits and contributing nothing of strategic value, the Isles and their land serfs quickly turned the tide of battle. Under a steadfast occupation in 1469 CE, the sailors of Stornoway annexed Sligo and vassalized the landlocked rump state of Gaeldom. But war submerged the state's shillings, and in order to pull a profit, plunder was back on the menu. By raid-sailing legends, the Isles accrued buckets of ducats, which were in turn reinvested into the state, launching a renaissance of nautical studies. And on the topic of boatocracy, the decision was impressed to requisition more ports throughout the Isles. In swift succession, the ships of Stornoway were cruising for a bruising, inflicting defeat on the Irish OPMs and the minor nations of the Scottish heartland. After abusing the AI and holding our enemy at bay, the Isles successfully appropriated province after Irish province, and further expanded their subject states throughout the Scottish Highlands. But the primary enemy, the Angles of land, remained sovereign, and drastic measures were put into place. Our former foe of France was wined and dined, and readily agreed to assume the role of ally and subject serf. After allying the boogeyman of Europe and upon decades of liberating Catholic sailors and redecorating their ports, the Pope and Europe in general hated the Iron Isles. While sailors are not known to read theses, Martin von Lute inspired the Captain's Council and lifted the sails on Protestantism. In the interim, the Isles amassed colonial ideas, investing into exploration and expansion in an effort to explore the New World and acquire more subject states. With our religion in place, ducats in the bank, and ideas in order, it was time for the sailors of Stornoway to navigate westwards and pilfer the New World. But before we embark our barks, it's time for some shameless self-promotion. If you're enjoying the content and want to show your support, consider shipping out a like and submerging the subscription box. You can also support the channel by perusing my Patreon page, or by checking out my Nexus game store, where you can buy Steam keys for EU4, Paradox games, and DLC on sale to support the channel. With the self-shilling out of the way, it's about time to spread the empire overseas. By the dawn of the 16th century, the Western Hemisphere remained ripe for the taking, and in 1500 CE, the pirates of the Hebrides made landfall in the Western Indies and began colonizing the Caribbean. But the ambitions of the boatocracy did not lie entirely within the New World. Perfidious Albion lied along the southern frontier, and thus peace was never an option. Mustering the land serfs of France and Scandinavia, the Isles declared war with England in 1503. Waves and waves of English and Irish soldiers streamed into Hebridean land, laying waste to the Boatocratic state. In the midst of military collapse and a noble plot, the sailors of Scandinavia heeded the call, and made land past the enemy's lines. London fell under Danish occupation, while the Scottish seamen of the Isles stalwartly blockaded the British from taking their capital. After many years of the Danes putting the law back into England and France helpfully avoiding any contribution of their own, the Captain's Council opted to press for peace in 1508. In exchange for the annexation of Northern Ireland, Southern Scotland, and the vassallation of Northumbria, England was allowed to live, for now. The boatocracy's policy of ship only, however, had submerged the state in war exhaustion and open rebellion, with no sovereign infantry forces to deal with the rebel threats. Internal conflicts erupted across the Highlands, and faced with no military to handle them, the Isles capitulated to dissident demands. For nearly a decade, the oarsmen of Stornoway stared upon their lands from their mighty ships, bravely supervising the serfs of the sovereign on a quest to rebuild the state. By 1519, Gaeldom was integrated into the realm, and an end to rebellion was at hand. It was now the dawn of a new age, and heralded the birth of the Piratocratic Empire. Over the course of the 1500s, the Isles embarked on a war against the world, gaining CBs across the 7 seas. Hippity-hoppity, Canada too became Hebridean property, with colonial nations becoming named after the most prestigious of explorers and admirals of state. After Denmark attempted to call us into war with Muscovy, we abandoned their call, opting to ship them out of the North Sea instead. The sailors of Stornoway and mercenaries from Munster sank the deviant Danes into a watery grave, and annexed all of Iceland, the Northern Isles, and Copenhagen itself, without using a sovereign soldier. Prominent pirating routes Yarr opening into the Baltic, and the boatocracy was swift to convert their ill-begotten gains into galleons of war. Harboring contempt for their southern neighbor, the Isles declared yet another war on England in 1564, and impressed France and Munster into service. With land duty being left to the allied serfs, the boatocracy ruled the waves, and delivered British boats into Hull. Before absolute capitulation, our nation ascended onto the list of great powers, though no power could intervene in England getting royally shipped upon. The English were evicted from Ireland, South America, and even Liverpool, but the pirate party was only getting started. It's time for a montage. As time sailed on, the Protestants Yarr in control of the HRE. This eldritch abomination was formed as a colonial nation, Scotland was keel-hauled, and the sick man of Albion was under Boatocratic blockade yet again. While the brave buccaneers of the Isles bombarded Britain by sea, France and Northumbria took her by land, with the spoils consisting of formerly British Brazil, the East Midlands, and Wales. In the West Indies, the colonies were in no way of danger either, and expanded across the continent through subjugation. Pirate Panama was founded and well fed, and England, after yet another war of subjugation, was on its last legs. It wouldn't be a proper montage without mariachi, and in 1618, colonial Mexico was also locked and boated. With 5 continental colonies in place, peace was never an option, with the captain of the council only having to declare war for his subject serfs to subsequently swarm and consume any target of their choosing. Rather than be bogged down in specifics, Boatopia in Botagonia was founded, Britain was marooned to Swaziland, Ireland was subjugated, and California became a colony of corsairs. Somewhat surprisingly, the sovereign Scotland state spawned manufactories in our land. Peru was then reconsolidated into Upper Boatopia, Alaska and Australia obtained confederation, and Burgundy was suffering serious scurvy. As the last independent nation of Britannia, Burgundy would have to walk the plank. In fact, Burgundy was nearly wiped off of the Hebridean Isles, holding on to only London as its final British port of call. Co-belligerent Portugal fared no better, with its Louisiana territories converted into colonial booty, and the port of Porto falling into our sails. By 1677, the Isles were indeed unboatable, posting over 250 warships across the 7 seas. By the end of the 17th century, the Isles ruled the waves, having integrated Cornwall and all of their other vessels into sovereign states. At this point, the pirates were bored from their gourds, and could 360 no-sail entire Spanish and Portuguese treasure fleets, though the issue of Burgundy remained a thorn within piratical lore. Shoring up support amongst their allies and subjugating Brittany in the wake of this danger, the Captain's Council decided the best course of action would be to mount an allied attack on the Pay-Pal states, a steadfast ally to the Burgundian pretenders in London. It only took 4 years for the computer AI to follow our war goal and occupy a single province, though the risk was worth the reward. In 1706, London capitulated, and all of the Isles belonged to the Isles, leaving Smiles in the former city of Hostiles. Despite our boat-only policy, the plurality of North and South America was further liberated by subject colonies, unbound by sovereign military restrictions. Back in Europe, the coastal crownland of Lincolnshire was scuttled and reconstructed as Boatopolis, the newly forged capital of our thalassocratic state. Sailors from across the settled seas made land in this new home, greatly developing the province and prospering south of Hull. With our boats no longer able to blockade anything of value, the Captain's Council was forced to rely on the AI to lead their subject armies. While this is a family channel, suffice to say gameplay became ferry shipping and boating at this point, so it's time to wrap up and drop anchor. In 1748 AD, the Boatocracy of Britannia rules the waves, and is the undisputed superpower of the sea. The Atlantic Ocean, North and South America, large portions of Africa, and smaller segments of Asia sail under our green flag of peace and prosperity. Indeed, the Isles are the hegemonic great power of their time, with a naval force unmatched in quality and quantity across the 7 seas. Irony aside, the high land culture dominates across our vast maritime realm, with the English language and culture nearing the point of extinction. In temporal affairs, our realm is the preeminent Protestant power, though that isn't saying much when Protestantism is practically extinct. In this cursed timeline, the papist heretics rule across the majority of Christendom, though we were able to dispute indulgences across the plurality of the Americas. In terms of idea groups, we've heavily invested into colonialism, and of course picked the objectively best military sets in the game to lead our nation, like the naval and maritime ideas. Last but certainly not least, the capital of the Isles is the metropolis of Boatopolis, by far the largest and most important global trading port and port story. To shore aside any sentiments of skullduggery, Yarr should also take a gander at this military technology template, which remains unchanged since 1444. No military units were upgraded, nor were infantry used in the recording of this campaign, and AlzaboHD officially espouses the ethical doctrine of pacifist non-intervention. Before ending the video, I'd like to thank you for watching this far and supporting the YouTube algorithm. If you're looking for even more content, please consider shipping out a comment, submerging the like button, and blasting the subscribe bell into whole. It's been a long time since I've put out a video, and I'd like to inform you that I'm still alive, so stay tuned for more content later this month. In other news, there is an ongoing poll on the community page where you can vote for a future video, and so far it appears that it will be a blast, so be sure to cast your lot if you aren't a fan of buckshot. This poll will expire at the end of the month. With that being said, the next video will be on Crusader Kings, and if you've liked my CK3 content, you are in luck. With that out of the way, it's time to thank the patrons and show some cards. It's time now to roll the credits.